You're not talking for men. You're a voice against men. You know what? Why don't you just join the National Organization for Women? Because your obsession with housewives and maintaining the status quo, you would fit right in with them. You know, you should join them because they are in fact your umbrella organization where you belong under, because you work to the same ends. You guys tell MGTOW we are the same as the feminists. No. We just point out uncomfortable truths. The same as the feminists is you.
Here we go.
Hello everyone. We have seen in the previous past,
As opposed to the present past or the future past,
that we got some attention, unfortunately, from the so-called MRM, embodied and represented by the American quote-unquote men's rights outlet AVFM, A Voice for Men.
You're not going to try to tell me that Paul thinks that rape should be legal on private property and that Dean thinks that the Inquisition was a good first step, are you?
The problem is that the so-called MRM and many groups that are associated with the so-called manosphere are not about men's rights. They are about the nuclear family. They are about traditionalism. And they want to, quote-unquote, make traditionalism work again.
Seriously? We want to make traditionalism work again? Yeah, you ever heard of financial abortion? If you ever talk to a men's rights activist, you'll probably hear them talk about financial abortion, which is a totally traditionalist concept.
They don't want to see or to hear or to understand that what they perceive as a traditional lifestyle, the so-called nuclear family with a provider husband and a part-time working or not working at all stay-at-home mother, is a thing of the past. And that monogamy itself is a thing of the past.
Out of all of the households in the United States, approximately 1 in 5 is a nuclear family. Sounds dead to me.
I mean, look at these people. They're usually very old. They were born decades ago and they don't understand what has even happened in the past 20 years alone. Now, somebody who was born in 1980 or 1990, for that matter, has different problems in, let's say, marriage. These people don't even want to get married. And if they will get married, they will regret it.
So somebody who lived through the past 20 years as an adult, paying attention to politics, has less of an idea of what's going on in the world today than somebody who lived through the past 20 years watching fucking Britney Spears videos and Hannah Montana. Okay. And you're also, again, you're trying to say here that the young people of today don't want to get married. Well, that's cute. Then why do you immediately then say that they will pay? Why do so many of them still get married? Why is 18% of the households in the U.S. nuclear families? Maybe because you're just talking out your ass? Maybe that has something to do with it.
I've seen these people, basically, they don't give a shit about fathers. They don't give a shit about men who basically want to be involved in their children's lives. They are upset men pay child support.
You sound a lot like a feminist trying to tell us what we're about with absolutely no fucking clue what we're about. I'm an MRA, and I am all about father's rights, about a dad having the right to see his kids, about a father being involved in his kid's life. And that's why I showed up on YouTube, was to be involved in my son's life. Quite literally, I showed up on YouTube trying to be involved in my son's life. And I received support from AVFM, from other members of the MRM. Quite a bit of support. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about, sir. You're like a feminist.
Men lose custody because they are not involved in their children's life before the divorce. What do you want to do? Do you want to give a man who lives in a different city even and who comes home every other weekend, do you want to give him 50% shared custody? Now, I'm not even saying we shouldn't, but I'm saying what logically happens is that the context in which the child has been raised will be continued after the divorce.
You shouldn't even be commenting on this stuff. You're so fucking uneducated and ignorant on it and opinionated. If the courts say that the parent who spends the majority of the time raising the children should get to spend almost all the time with the kids after the fact, the kids are not kept in the same standard as they were. The kids are kept put in an entirely different scenario. They can't ask daddy for help on their homework anymore. He can't fix their bicycles for them or whatever the fuck it is, okay? So that right off the bat. But on top of it, you're saying that this is somehow a man's fault. And then you're going to blame men for not rising up against society and completely changing everything. They're trying to raise a family.
Why should they now suddenly change just because there is a divorce? That's the thing. I would men to be involved from the get-go, so that even without any major legal change, the continuation principle will apply and men will continue to be equally involved in their children's lives and will not pay child support and will not have to deal with the ex-wife, and the ex-wife will anyway have to keep her job and work and pay her own way.
Yeah, your solution is to completely revamp society to be completely egalitarian, and barring that, no activism whatsoever need be done. This is the only thing that needs to happen. You just change that, and then we can even keep our laws the same. Hey, why bother trying to change our laws when we can just revamp all of society? That seems like the easy thing to do.
They don't understand that it's not just a matter of laws. This is also a matter of, let's say, this is also a matter of real institutions, of social institutions.
Why, yes, Skippy, it takes a change in social attitudes in order to change the law in a democracy. I do believe we're well aware of that.
What is business of somebody who calls himself men's rights activist to enable women to stay at home? That is not the business for men's rights activists. If anything, the business is women should work as much as men, full stop. That's the business of a men's rights activist. Everything else is detrimental to the interest of men, has nothing to do with men's rights. And these people have nothing to do with men's rights.
And here it is. This is the bit that really made me want to make a video about this. You are really, really, really totalitarian in your thinking. So if somebody is not trying to force women to work as much as men, and force men to spend more time with their kids even if they don't want to, then these people are not true men's rights activists. They're not trying to help men. A conservative Christian that is a traditionalist that, say for example, tries to help men with family court issues is not a men's rights activist because he's still a traditionalist. Or someone who thinks that the best way to get to true egalitarianism in society is to take baby steps and not just force a fucking social revolution on all of humanity. These people too, full stop, according to you, are wrong. You're insane, sir. You have no idea about activism. You have no idea how social change works. You have no idea what you're even talking about when it comes to the law and society as far as things that go. You're just babbling on about bullshit.
Otherwise, they would be lobbying for things like paid paternity leave. They would be lobbying that fathers can have, for instance, home office, so they can have more access to their children. They would be thinking about these things. And then they would be worrying about child support and all that. And of course, they would be unapologetically for shared parenting. But that's not really what's on their mind. What's on their mind is a feminist said something offensive about men at 12 o'clock at night.
Okay, Alexander, here's a challenge. Go find me the MRA that is opposed to shared parenting. Good luck with that. You're talking out your ass. You have no idea what you're talking about. You're just leveling charges against the men's rights movement from your own interpretation of what you've read about them on sites that I don't even know where you go. We hunted the mammoth? And yes, we will criticize feminism, especially when it makes itself an easy target because the movement is bigoted. It has passed a number of laws that have affected this, including the Tender Years Doctrine and now's opposition to shared parenting and things like the Duluth Model of Domestic Violence and the Violence Against Women Act. These things all rear their ugly head in family court. And as you said earlier, social change is a big deal. And as I added to that, votes is what matters. And guess what? When you have an opportunity to expose your ideological opponent for being bigoted, for being hateful, for being not what they claim to be, you take it. This is activism, not trying to overturn the world on some philosophical stone with no road to get there.
They don't even understand why the nuclear family has gone to shit. And that was not because of feminism. Feminists just went out and said the obvious. They were just a messenger. Capitalism has destroyed the nuclear family because it has offered women a subsistence of the market. So they didn't need anymore their husbands.
Are you trying to say that feminism had nothing to do with women entering the workforce in far larger numbers than they did before? Are you trying to say that feminism had nothing to do with the large number of social welfare programs put into place to allow a woman with a child and no job to leave her husband? Is that what you're saying? If so, I would once again say that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about and are just speaking from ideas and not from any sort of education or fact at all on the matter. Perfect example right there. You're talking about capitalism being the issue. Okay, capitalism allows a woman to work, but it also forces childcare on that child. Now she's cutting the man out. She needs somebody to watch that child, and she has to pay for it, right? Now, guess what steps in and fills that? Not capitalism, that's social welfare programs. Socialism. Socialism is what has created the issues that make it easy for someone to leave their spouse with no job.
Because we keep traditionalism artificially alive. We should bury it, and with it, you would bury the bacteria. You would bury the affliction of feminism as well. There would be no need for feminism. Women would have all the equality and all equal duties. What would feminists still want? Nothing.
More of this just complete ignorance as to how the world works on your part. Since we're on YouTube, maybe you'll understand it if I draw it out in YouTube terms. Say you have a prominent feminist YouTuber like Lacey Green, and she makes a lot of money making videos about feminism. Say, for example, you get what you talked about, complete egalitarian society, total equity of outcome, communism all the way. She's out of a job, right? She's going to have to find something to cling to. Let me draw you a real-world parallel. The LGBT movement recently got its right to have gay marriage in the United States. Now, myself and many others who are not gay but had spoken out on behalf of these people had used the argument, hey, if you are sick and tired of hearing about them wanting equal rights, just let them get married and I bet you won't hear from them anymore. But now you hear them crying about bathrooms. Not all of them, but enough of them. Enough of them. The people that are intertwined in it financially have no choice but to find a new issue, no matter if there's none left. Air conditioning is sexist according to feminism because they don't have any issues left to fight for.
They would work, they would have their careers, men would take care of the children at least 50% of the time. Full stop. What else is to discuss? Nothing.
Mainstream feminists don't want men to have their kids half the time? Don't know what to tell you? Except for that you probably already know this and are just pretending not to so you can make this part of the argument because feminism claims to stand for equality.
Stop bribing women into relationships. Is that so difficult to understand? And if women don't respond to that, then, well, bad luck. Better to have no woman around than to have a woman that you need to bribe to pretend to like you. Isn't that disgusting? This is even worse than having a prostitute. At least a prostitute, you know what the deal is about and you don't pretend it's something else. I mean, at least some prostitutes even tend to have even genuine feelings for some of their clients, unlike probably most housewives.
And what a warped view of women you have. I mean, I understand that there's some really rotten women out there that will use the rules and the laws that society has to really fuck a man over. Hell, I know that better than a lot of men. But to say that that makes it where most housewives don't have emotions for their men, but a prostitute may? Wow. I mean, just fucking wow.
When women burned their bras 4 or 5 decades ago, it was about time to bury the fucking nuclear family. But you idiots had to double down And the doubling down was what? It was no-fault divorce, unconditional alimony, lifetime maintenance, de facto default custody for women over children, child support, etc., 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 and men working 2 or 3 jobs and being cornered into an obsolete provider role. That was what your fucking doubling down on your fucking nuclear family has done for a man.
You're trying to blame the men's rights movement for no-fault divorce, for child support, for alimony? What the fuck are you talking about? This is literally the stuff that we oppose. Like from day one, from the guys like Warren Farrell who left feminism before there was a men's rights movement because of shared parenting. You're completely off your rocker here, man.
And guess what? Who votes for so-called feminist policies? It's mostly housewives. They are the ones voting for this. And you even support them and have them on your board and have them creating content for you. How despicable is that even? You're not talking for men. You're a voice against men.
You're no different than a feminist or social justice warrior discriminating against straight white men. You're saying that a housewife should not be allowed to speak out about men's rights. Why? Because she's a woman? Because she doesn't work as many hours as the man and raises the children, spends more time raising the kids? So that right there makes it where she shouldn't have a say in men's rights? You do realize they still live in the real world, right?
You guys tell MGTOW we are the same as the feminists. No. We just point out uncomfortable truths. The same as the feminists is you. Because like these feminist organizations, you want to have men locked up in an outdated provider role.
Again, financial abortion is something you will hear many people in the men's rights movement speaking on, which is the exact opposite of locking a man into a traditional provider role. You do not know what the fuck you're talking about.
Look it up. Even now is against shared parenting. And actually, you are as well, even if you don't admit it.
If you can find me the men's rights activist that would vote against a 50-50 shared parenting bill, you let me know. What you're saying here is basically if a man is not willing to go to jail, if a man is not willing to see his kids starve because the system is currently fucked, then that man is in support of that system. You're insane. You're absolutely insane. That's like saying that someone who is a pacifist that pays their taxes is actually not a pacifist because they're choosing to pay their taxes to buy some bombs over going to jail. Do you not understand how fucking crazy that is? How just retardedly like simplistic that is. That is like the opposite of nuance. That is like there is either black or white. Either you are for this or you are against this. And there is no middle ground. Meanwhile, this guy has had his kids stripped away from him and is having his paycheck beat on him. His emotions are hot, his money's tight, and he's being forced to think. And you're telling him, jump off a cliff for the movement. Burn yourself on the fucking front steps of the embassy. It'll help us all. Great message.
And I'm sitting here with Paul Elam, who's famous for the founding A Voice for Men and now An Ear for Men. And I think most viewers recognize Paul by now. Paul delivered the last talk of the day today on gynocentrism, I think it was. Paul, is that right?
Yeah.
And what can you give us a gist of the nature of your talk?
Well, I really just wanted to maybe make the point that in our efforts to advocate for men's and boys' issues, that we don't just get swallowed up in an anti-feminist narrative, that there's a lot of things that affect men and boys besides feminism, things that have been with us for centuries and centuries, and that if we don't look at those issues too, if we don't look at the core of where the issues come from that affect men and boys, then we start engaging in what I call entertainment activism. It's really fun to go out and make fun of people like Big Red and Trigglypuff and others like that. It's a blast. But is it activism? Well, yes and no. There's a lot of very serious issues.